We've been celebrating Hispanic heritage all month long, and our next guest joins us to talk about one of the biggest events in the world that highlights the advancement of Latino people across all industries, especially in business. Gary Acosta from Latitude. Thank you so much, Gary, for joining us here on Live in the Bay.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course, Gary. Now, first and foremost, for our viewers who may not know what Latitude is, it's more than just an annual event. So can you give me a background on what Latitude is?
Well, Latitude is a big conference, and the thrust behind it really is to create a new narrative about the Latino community in the United States, correcting, I think, the misunderstandings that people have about what Latinos truly represent in this country. So we release a lot of data. We have several reports. We have sessions. We meet with some of the biggest and most powerful people in business, in media, and entertainment, all about correcting that narrative and sharing data to do that.
And Gary, why is it specifically so important to change the view of Latinos and Latinas in this country?
Well, I mean, when you think about what many people think of the Latino community, it isn't always great. I think a lot of people have the perception that we all have immigration problems, we all have financial problems, we all have legal problems. And that's not great just in itself, but it does have also an impact on other things. One of the other major issues that we discussed at Latitude was capital and access to capital. And why would anybody want to invest in a community that was rife with problems? So that narrative does have an impact on business. It has an impact on the prosperity and the overall quality of life for Latinos in this country.
Well, Gary, like you mentioned, Latitude is a huge conference that happens every single year. And you said, like you mentioned already, one of the biggest objectives is to change that narrative of Latin people in this country. Now, the event did just happen over the past couple of weeks. Can you tell us about, what happened at this event and some of the highlights?
Well, we start off by releasing a report by the Latino Donor Collaborative called the Latino GDP Report. And this is where we measure the gross domestic product of Latinos in the United States. We use the same methodology that the U.S. government uses to measure GDP. That report indicated that Latinos represent about $2.8 trillion worth of GDP, which, if it were a standalone nation, and we're talking about just Latinos in the United States, would be the 5th largest economy in the world, ahead of Great Britain, ahead of India, and now ahead of France. So this is an enormous data point to start the conference off with, and it sets the tone for many of the conversations. We had a half a dozen Fortune 500 CEOs presenting at the event, including the CEO of Nike, the CEO of Target, and several others, engaging in conversations about what the Latino community represents to them from a business standpoint. We had sessions on housing, which I led. We called it the digitization and demographic changes in the housing industry. We had several CEOs on that panel as well. We had sessions on sports. We had sessions on the media and entertainment. It was really a terrific event that was very engaging and was really impactful in a lot of different ways. The conference ended with me interviewing former President Barack Obama, discussing many of these same issues.
Well, that's pretty cool. You mentioned President Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama, who was at the conference. Can you talk about some of the highlights that stood out to you?
In that conversation, sure. First of all, President Obama is very much an influencer in the global stage. And so having the opportunity to speak to him about the relevance of the Latino marketplace is important. A lot of media picked it up. We talked about capital and what we call the greatest mystery in the history of capitalism, because capital is supposed to flow where growth is going. And there's no greater engine for growth in the United States than the Latino community, but capital is not flowing. Only 2% of venture capital, for example, goes to Latino-led startups. And that's just counterintuitive because capital is supposed to flow where the growth is. We talked about that. We talked a little bit about immigration and the fact that we have 11 million unfilled jobs in this country right now. And we have an aging population, and nothing is going to change that other than smart immigration reform. And we talked about a number of different issues as it pertained to Latinos in the U.S. economy. And it was very very engaging. The president was very much at ease, and we were having a very frank conversation about all of it.
So incredible. And he is one notable figure that was at the conference, but there were also other notable figures there that actually received some awards. Can you talk about that, Gary?
Yes. Every year, one of the things that we enjoy doing the most is recognizing Latinos who have achieved tremendous things in their own careers, but also have set a high bar in terms of giving back. We've recognized in the past Chef Jose Andres, Eva Longoria, Emilio and Gloria Estefan, and this year we recognized and honored Lin-Manuel Miranda at our gala. He obviously has transformed Broadway with his musicals, but has also led the way in giving back, especially to Puerto Rico, when Puerto Rico has suffered so much because of natural disasters in the last several years. He's done tremendous and shown tremendous leadership in that regard, and it was an honor to be able to recognize him for doing that.
Well, it's incredible all of the work that you and the conference is accomplishing. Now, those who were not able to attend, they can still revisit and find all the information, correct? That was at the conference?
Yes, they can go to our website, which is Latitude, L-A-T-T-I-T-U-D-E, latitude.net. And we will soon have almost all of the sessions posted online so the general public can see that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Gary, for joining us here on Live in the Bay. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
To learn more about Latitude, you can find a link on our website at liveinthebay.tv.